The last example I want to show you is solving a quadratic equation where you need to use headphones as the factoring method. Headphones is the method that we use where we do not have a GCF and we have a number, a coefficient of x squared other than 1. So here we have 2. We have 2 times -5. That's our first step for headphones. Again, it's equal to 0, so I can start this process of factoring. When I multiply 2 times -5, I get -10. So my diamond would be -10 and +3. I want to find two numbers that add to 3 and multiply to -10. So if I'm multiplying to a -10, I need to have a positive times a negative. But if I have to add to a +3, I need my 5 to be positive and my 2 to be negative. I think that'll work. So let's just double check that. +5 times -2 is -10, that works. And then +5 plus -2 would be +3, that works as well. So that's my diamond. So after I establish my diamond, I have to rewrite my trinomial as 4 terms instead of 3. The first term, if you remember, stays the same. The last term stays the same as well. It's just that middle term that gets broken up. I'm going to use -2x and +5x as my middle terms. So now I'm going to use grouping because I have 4 terms. So I'm going to separate my left-hand side from my right-hand side and do a GCF on each side. All right, so my GCF for the first one would be 2. So I'm doing 2 times x and then 2 times x here. 2 times 1, I'm going to say. All right, so that would leave me with 1, 2 in common and 1x in common. So 2x would be my GCF. My leftovers would be x minus 1. My GCF for the right side would be 5 as well. So 5 times 1 times x, and then 5 times 1. So they have a 5 in common. Bring down my positive sign. So +5 is my GCF. The leftovers would be x minus 1. Remember, the leftovers are supposed to match, which they do. So that would be my new GCF. And then my new leftovers would be the 2x and the +5. All right, so I've factored it. But remember, I'm not done now because I have an equation. This equation is set equal to 0, so I have to bring down my equal 0. And now I have a equation with 2 factors set equal to 0. I'm going to use my zero product property from Monday's lesson. So remember, we have to separate and set each factor equal to 0 when I do my zero product property. All right, then I solve the equation on the left. I solve it by doing inverse operations. I add 1 to both sides, leaving me with x equals 1. I then have to solve the right-hand side. All right, here I have to do 2 inverse operations. I first start by undoing addition of 5. I do subtraction of 5, the inverse operation. So 2x equals 0 minus 5, so that'd be -5. All right, but x is not alone yet, so I'm not done. I have to get rid of the 2. The 2 is connected to x by multiplication, so I have to do the inverse operation of division. All right, so that leaves us with a fraction. All right, I can either leave that in fraction form, or I can divide those numbers and put it in decimal form, which would give us -2.5. So that would be my other answer. Fraction form or decimal form is fine, depending upon how the question asks it or whatever. So my 2 solutions would be 1 and -2.5. All right, and then again, I can check my answers on my graphing calculator. Wherever I see an x, I'm going to substitute the solutions. So my first solution was 1. So wherever I see an x, I'm going to substitute 1. So 2 times x squared, so 2 times 1 squared, plus 3 times x, so 3 times 1, minus 5. It's supposed to be equal to 0. It is. Very good. So now I'm going to substitute my other answer, which was this fraction or decimal. You can do it either way, fraction or decimal. So let's say I'm doing the fraction. If I'm doing the fraction, I need to use alpha y equals, remember that, and hit enter. So my fraction is -5/2. So I'm going to use that instead of my x. And replace it with that -5/2 using my alpha y equals key. Or I can do it in decimal form. Either way is fine. And when I do that, I also get 0. All right, again, just to show you that the decimal will also work, I will substitute the decimal in for x, but you don't have to do both. You can either do the decimal or the fraction. It's the same thing, they're equivalent. And you get 0 either way. So you know that these are the two correct solutions.